So, a very good morning, everybody. Today, our class is on dental implants. So, this class has been divided again into two sessions. So, in the starting, we will go on with the basic principles, and the second class is mainly on periodontal maintenance. About the implant maintenance. So, during this, at the end of this session, we would like you to know how to differentiate between the peri-implant structure from the natural periodontal structures, list two methods of implant placement surgeries, explain what is osseointegration, categorize various treatment possibilities using implants, execute basic skills in managing diseases such as peri-implant mucositis or peri-implantitis, design an effective maintenance strategy for the implant patients. The last two points we will be seeing it in the next class, whereas the first 4 points we will be checking out in this class, and you will be able to understand how to do these procedures also. Now coming on to the contents, so we will be starting with introduction, going on with terminologies and the differentiation between natural tooth and implant. What are the main differences? What are the parts of an implant? How is implant classified according to various categories? What are the indications and contraindications of placing an implant? What are the advantages and disadvantages of placing them? Pre-surgical evaluation, which includes the bone density and the anatomic landmarks. And then we will be speaking about the surgical procedure. There are two surgical procedures, so we'll be mainly concentrating on the two-stage surgical procedure here, and then we'll be speaking a little about abutments, and then we'll finish it with conclusion. So to start with, the history of modern implant dentistry began with the introduction of titanium implants. In 1950s, Per Ingvar Brännmark, a Swedish professor of anatomy, he had a serendipitous finding while studying blood circulation in the bone that became a historical breakthrough in medicine. He coined the term osseointegration and developed an implant system with a specific protocol to achieve it predictably. Very important in terms of um, implant placement. And next, about the success rate and about the survival rate. Success rate depends only when proper osseointegration has occurred. Survival, if the implant is seen in the oral cavity itself, we tend to say that the implant has a good survival rate. In case of your natural tooth, the cementum is present around the root surface, and then you do have a periodontal ligament beyond it, and then you have the bone which has separated from the tooth by means of a connective tissue, and you also have the periodontal ligament fibers which are arranged a little perpendicular to the tooth structure. So these are all the basic points in a natural tooth, and also you can see that the junctional epithelium is around 0.97 mm and the connective tissue attachment is around 1.07 mm, which gives a biological width of around 2.04 mm. But in case of a natural implant or in case of an implant, that is the scenario is little different. Here you can very well see that there is no cementum or there is no periodontal ligament. The bone is directly fused to the implant over here. Another main difference is that the fibers which are arranged are more parallelly arranged to the implant surface, and next the junctional epithelium which is present is little more higher in its dimension when compared to that of the natural tooth. So junctional epithelium is around 1.5 mm, connective tissue is around 1 mm, which brings it to a biological width of 2.5 mm. One more major difference between both is that junctional epithelium here is uh, is less permeable and is very strong, but here the junctional epithelium is more permeable. In other words, if there is going to be any food substance or plaque which is stuck here, it is going to very easily invade the inner structures here. So when placing an implant, you should be very sure that the patient is a patient who is going to maintain a very good oral hygiene. So these again in the form of words. The first 2 points are going to be the same points. Free gingival margin is present with the help of buccal keratinized tissue in case of both the peridental and the peri-implant tissue. Gingival sulcus is apically limited by the junctional epithelium in both the peridental as well as peri-implant tissues. As I told you, junctional epithelium, it is less permeable, but it is highly regenerative with a high regenerative capacity and is more adherent to the tooth structure, whereas in case of an implant, The junction epithelium is poorly adherent, more permeable, and low regenerative capacity, which means that there is more chances that it gets destroyed very soon. So be very careful when you're going to place an implant for a patient. And as I told you already, there is cementum here, there is no cementum here. The gingival fibers are inserted perpendicular to the cementum. These are running parallel to it. Biological width is around 2.04 mm. Here the biological width is around 2.5 mm. There is periodontal ligament, there is no periodontal ligament, and there is no direct bone to tooth contact, whereas here there is a direct implant to bone contact. In other terms, there should be a proper osseointegration present if the peri-implant tissue is to be good. Next, coming on to the parts of an implant. So it has been divided into few parts. So this is the implant body, the abutment screw, the abutment over it, and the crown. Apart from that, you have other for other parts which have been used in the surgical procedures, named as gingival former or the healing abutment, impression coping, impression analog, cover screws, and the retentive anchors. So regarding all this, we will be seeing through the surgical procedures. So here you can see the three-dimensional diagram of the tissue and the titanium interrelationship, showing an overall view of the intact interfacial zone around the osseointegrated implant. So you can see that very well here. And apart from that, you can also see around a period of time how this interface has developed, how it has gone and deeply embedded itself with the implant in case of a very good and maintained implant. So now coming on to the classification of implants. So it has been classified according to various categories. So according to the anatomical position, it has been classified as endosseous implants, where you are placing the implants into the alveolar bone, deep into the alveolar bone, and this could be of various types. This could be a screw shaped implant or screw type implant, or it could be a cylindrical implant, or it could be a blade implant, a pin implant, or a ramus frame implant. Subperiosteal implant. So this is mainly done once an impression is made prior to the implant placement on exposure of the bone, after which a metal framework is made, and it is made to lie on the top of the jawbone, after which the posts are done, and this remain above the gum tissue for as anchors for the replacement of the teeth. So this is not as deep as in the case of your endosseous implants. So here you have complete arch implant, two-piece implant, one-piece implant, or the unilateral implants. Next, coming on to the transosseous implants. So here you can see in this case, especially in edentulous jaws, which is totally resorbed, so to get more better stability and retention, two cortical plates are involved, like the pores pass through the jawbone, the upper one as well as the lower one, and this is also being connected by other metal a metal plate. So implant is passed through the two cortical plates for an increased retention as well as stability. So single pin implants are also present, multiple pin implants are also present. So these are called as the transosseous implants. According to the material used, we have the commercially pure titanium implants, titanium alloyed implants which are available. Apart from that, you do have certain alterations which are done in its surface by with the means of ceramics, hydroxyapatite, tricalcium phosphate, aluminum oxide, bioglass, carbon silicon, and polymers such as polytetrafluoroethylene, polymethyl methacrylate, and polyurethane. According to the shape of the implants, it could be a cylinder shape, it could be either surface treated, threaded, like for example you can see the threads here, hollow fixation plate appended with or with fixation plates, disc appended or with discs, a blade including ramus frame, open mesh or open frame, and the button implants. It could be either a polished machined implant, or it could be a grit blasted, etched, or coated implant. So this surface treatment is mainly done. So one main reason why it is being done is that there is a two-stage surgical procedure where it takes around 3 to 6 months to place another to load the implant. So if it is going to be a implant which is surface treated, so in that case it could be easily the load can be easily placed in case if the bone is very good. So they treat it before placement of an implant. According to the mode of retention, implant supported removable processes, implant supported fixer processes. According to the biodynamic activity, it has been classified as biotolerant, bioinert, or bioactive implants. Next, coming on to the indications. So as you all know, the main indication would be single or multiple teeth or tooth or teeth replacements. Partially edentulous patients with free end edentulous area. So especially in your lower mandibles, if you have 4-7 or 3-7 missing, so in that case, if you're planning for a fixed processes, it is little difficult to give because it will be a cantilever type of abutment, so it is going to be difficult. So in that case, you can go in for an implant if the bone is good. Next important indication is your preventive implant, which is indicated following extractions to retard the rigid resorption. Next is macroglossia or hypermobility of the tongue can be controlled if the teeth are placed. Intolerance to bulky complete denture. So this is one of the major complaints which patients have, where they tell that they are not able to comply with the removable denture which it comes off every time. So in that cases, they go in for implants. Patients desire for a stable processes. Next, coming on to the contraindications. So this is a very important contraindication. So see to that patients who are not motivated to accept proper good oral hygiene measures, they are totally contraindicated for this procedure. As I told you already, junctional epithelium is more permeable here and less adherent, and therefore try to defer such patients, try not to do implants in such patients, or motivate them to maintain a proper oral hygiene and then going for the placement of the implants. Insufficient inter-arch distance, sensitivity to specific implant components, especially titanium, lack of expertise on part of the dentist, local or systemic diseases which would jeopardize the healing, for example, uncontrolled diabetes, blood dyscariasis, impacted tooth, cysts, tumors, osteomyelitis, or cancer, etc. And history of smoking dependency. So please avoid in such cases. And coming on to the advantages, so when you are going to place an implant, so it is always going to maintain the bone width and the height. There is not going to be much resorption as in the case of a RPD. And there is going to be a maintenance of occlusal vertical dimension. There is going to be improved psychological health, increased retention and stability. The tooth could be better positioned for an aesthetics, improved phonetics, increased survival time of the restoration. The main disadvantages being is that the expensive treatment which the patient has to bear, so that is the main problem, and long treatment duration. Supposing if it is a two-staged surgical procedure, the patient has to wait long to get his processes done. Repeated recalls, this is mainly because the maintenance of the implant, it has to be done so that oral hygiene, it doesn't interfere much with the tissues. Anatomical limitations while placing. Now coming on to the pre-surgical evaluation. So before going into the placement of the implant, see to that whether it is there is proper intra-arch space, the restorative requirements are met, the location of the edentulous area is good, how the bone quality and quantity is there, whether it is good or bad, whether it is little or more, and check all this with the help of radiographs. Take panoramic radiographs, periapical radiographs, lateral steps, and of late recent is the CBCT, or cone beam computerized tomographs is coming into play. So we'll be seeing one picture of this in the later slides. So as I told you already, the bone which is present where you're going to place the implant has to be checked before you're going to place the implant, because that is going to take most of the load which you're going to give. So in that case, there are 4 different types of bone density which was given by Misch, and he found out that the D1 type of bone has a dense cortical bone. So you can see here there is no porous structure itself, so it is going to be a dense cortical bone. So it is just similar to that of your oak or a maple wood, and this is mainly present in the anterior mandible region. D2 is going to be a kind of porous cortical bone with a coarse trabecular bone inside. So in this case, it is going to be present in your anterior mandible, posterior mandible, and your anterior maxilla. So all these areas do have D2 type of bone. D3 type of bone, you have a porous cortical bone with a fine trabecular bone outside. So in this case, this is present in the anterior maxilla, posterior maxilla, and the posterior mandible. D4 type of bone is a fine trabecular bone. So you can see how much amount of spaces is there between them. This is found mostly in the posterior maxilla region. So it has been found that D2 or D3 is found to be ideal for placement of your implants, whereas D1 is dense cortical, which has very limited blood supply in that area since it is very dense, and D4 is very fine, and therefore placement of implants is little difficult. The stability is achieved from here is little difficult. There's another category called as D5, called as the immature non-mineralized bone implant. So this is present mostly near the newly formed sinus aspects. Okay, next coming to the surgical landmarks and the limitations. So whenever you're going to place an implant, see to that you see all these landmarks and then plan your surgery. If not, you will be landing in serious trouble later. So next, the first one which you have to take care is your maxillary sinus, which is present. The second is your nasal floor cavities, which are present, and then is your incisive nerve, your inferior alveolar nerve, and then the roots and apices of the neighboring teeth, and the top of the alveolar crust. So you can see here different types of or the densities of bone which are available. So if I am going to place an implant in this kind of a bone, then it is usually going to fail for me. But if I am going to place an implant in varieties of bones such as like this, I can expect some amount of survival rate in that case. So now coming on to the surgical procedure. So just as I told you, this is going to be a very long procedure. So this has been divided into 3 different phases. Your first phase is your first surgical phase or your implant placement. Under local anesthesia, the dentist places the dental implants into the jaw bones with a very precise surgical procedure. The implant remains covered by the gums while gum tissue while fusing to the jaw bone. The second stage or the second surgical phase is an implant recovery phase, where approximately 6 months after healing period, the implant root alone is exposed, that is only the upper part is exposed, and a healing post is placed over the top of it, so the gum tissue heals around this. And then the third phase is your prosthetic phase, where once the gums have healed, an implant crown is fabricated and screwed down to the implant. So this is the 2-stage procedure. So we will be seeing in detail about this in the next few slides. Stages of surgical procedures. So in this case, after examination and treatment planning, that is in case of a 2-stage procedure, examination and treatment planning, implant is fixed, then we give a 3 to 6 months of healing period. That is, for proper osseointegration to occur, we give a 3 to 6 months of healing period, and then go on with the second stage, where there is going to be abutment connection which is being given, and after which again we wait for a 7 to 10 day of healing period, and then we go for the fabrication of the final restoration, and then we are going to deliver it along with radiographic examination whether we have inserted it properly, and proper oral hygiene instructions, followed by regular checkup. So this is your 2-stage procedure, because you do have 2 stages which is separated by a 3 to 6 months of healing period. Whereas your 1-stage procedure is one where there is where the examination, after examination and treatment planning, both the implant placement and the abutment connection are done on the same day itself. Then we wait for a variable healing period until the healing takes place, and then directly we go in for the fabrication of the final restoration, delivery, radiographic examination, oral hygiene instructions, followed by regular checkup. So this is a 1-stage procedure. Again, this variable waiting period can vary, can go up to a period of 1 month also, to check if their proper gingival healing has taken place. Okay, now we will go on through a certain animated pictures where we will be telling about the two-stage procedure. So this I have already uploaded the video of this two-stage animation video surgical procedure in your Google Classroom. You can go through the video once. Here we have the pictures where I'll be able to explain you better. So very starting, once you have planned for a surgical procedure, start going in for the flap preparation. You're going to prepare the gingiva with the help of a gingival punch or make a flap. So generally I prefer making a flap so that I can open the area very well, and I can reflect the flap very well, and I can see how my bone is, and then go on with my procedure. And after which, after seeing my bone, I go on with the very first drill, that is my marking drill, where I set the implant location with the marking drill. I use a speed of around 800 rpm, not more than that, and see to that whenever you're going to place all these drills, there is going to be saline always directed towards the drills, so that there is no much of bone necrosis because of the heat generated. Followed by which I am having my pilot drill. The 2 mm pilot drill is used to establish the implant length and alignment. So once I decide the implant length, so you do have a series of pilot drills which are present to give the proper length as well as the diameter. Again, you go in with a RPM of around 800 RPM. So once you have gone to the desired depth, then you are going to check it with the help of a depth gauge apparatus, where the preparation depth is checked. You can see whether it is being parallel to the adjacent teeth, whether it has not shifted to the either sides, or if the proper depth has been achieved. Followed by which you are doing a little pre-drilling with again 2.8 mm extension drill, and going in for various other drills. So this is based on the diameter. 3.1 diameter is there, 3.25 diameter, 3.75 diameter, and 4.25 diameter. Again, this depends on the planned implant diameter. Supposing if your implant is around 5 mm, if you have planned for an implant of around 5 mm, so you have to go around diameter of around 4.25 drill. So if your implant is around only 4, then stop at around 3.75 mm drill. After all this, use a smart drill for the smoother drill behavior. And once you have achieved your desired depth as well as your height, you are going to go in for something called as a crustal drill. So this drill depends on the bone quality. So you are going to just form the crust which is there, that is the upper part alone is being drilled with the help of this crustal drill, and followed by which you are going to go in with something called as bone tapping. So bone tapping is one which helps in producing little threads on the bone surface here. So this is mainly to facilitate adaptation of the implant, which also has threads on it. The bone tap can be used manually as well as machine driven is also available. Followed by which you could see here that there are certain small threaded structures on your tooth, on your implant, prepared implant site. So this is to facilitate a proper and easier insertion of your implant. So after all this, we go in for, after the site is prepared, we go in for the implant insertion. So the insertion of the implant can be done manually or it can be machine driven. The implant should be inserted until it's flush with the bone level. So this is done with the help of these hex drivers. So what we do is that after we place the implant with the help of the machine, and after which the implant is tightened further with the help of an hex driver. So you can very well see that the interface between the implant and the bone is very well locked, and see to that you don't submerge the implant very much below the level. Submerged implants always leads to failure. So try to place it either a little below the bone level, not much deeper, or not much higher, or exact to the bone level. So you can see the implant which is being placed, and after which the implant should be covered using an cover screw like this, so that it is becoming little safety for it, and then close it so that it is doesn't allow any other saliva or other particles to flow to reach inside it. So now coming to the second stage. So this stage, again, this can be taking up to 3 to 6 months, or it could be a single stage procedure where you do it immediately after a variable time period. So in this case, it is a second stage procedure with a small incision. You are going to remove the cover screw. Just make a small incision, and the cover screw which you have placed, you are going to remove it out. So you can see how we are removing the cover screw, followed by which you place something called as a gingival shaper or the gingival former. So this is placed to adapt the tissues around the gingiva or the tissues around the implant according to the implant. So when we are going to place the abutment, this forms a surface which is very much similar to that of your tooth surface, gingival tissues. So after the healing phase, this is left to around 7 to 10 days, and after this healing phase, that is 7 to 10 days, remove the gingival shaper or the gingival former. Transfer abutment which we place before taking impressions. So you have to choose which method you are going to go in for, an open tray technique or a closed tray technique. This procedure we go in for a closed tray technique. So you place this transfer abutment over this, and then so the transfer coping or the transfer abutment is placed over it. We are going to take the elastomeric putty material. So the putty material, first material is being placed around the transfer coping which is present here, and followed by which your assistant should load the tray immediately and place it directly over the transfer coping again here, and then take your impression. After oral placement, ensure that there are no pulls, drags, and a good co-lamination of the material to the surrounding area is present. So this you can see after the tray has been removed, that the exact even there is going to be very exact formation or transfer of your implant surface has been done. And coming on to the lab procedures, prepare the lab steps where you are going to transfer this abutment, that is the abutment which you have placed already, into the impression tray, and then you are going to reinsert back the gingival shaper again, and then you are going to send the impression tray back to the laboratory. So you can see that the gingival former is placed after the transfer abutment has been removed. So once the processes is fabricated and it is ready for delivery, you are going to insert the abutment, pre-milled abutment, and followed by which you are going to insert the processes. So again, this abutment could be either a screw type or a cement type of abutment which is present, and you can see the final processes which is placed. So this is one of the surgical cases which we have done. So you could see that it is a two-stage procedure. So before going for the surgical procedures, as I told you already, you should see the anatomic landmarks, and very best for all this is your radiographic or your pre-surgical evaluation. So see to that you take your proper IOPA and your OPG, and yeah, CT is always useful to us. It helps us in finding out how much is the dimension which is available, and also helps us to find where the inferior alveolar canal is nerve is already present. So this all helps us to find out whether it is going to be good for placement of implant. So you can see the preoperative view where there is 3/6 missing, a surgical stent is there, and the incision is placed at the surgical site, and the flap is reflected to see the surgical site. So osteotomy is done with a series of drills. This is the final osteotomy with the final depth drill, and the implant is being placed. As you can see here, we have not submerged it very deeply inside, it is just above, and then the surgical site is sutured and it is packed. After the healing period around 3 to 6 months, you could see that we have taken a radiograph just before the second surgical procedures, and you could see the beautiful osseointegration which has taken place after 3 to 6 months. So following which we remove the healing cap or the cover screw which is present, we have removed it, and then we have placed the gingival former so that the tissues around it takes the form of the original gum gingival tissues. And then you can see the elastomeric impression with the transfer coping which is present. The cast is poured and the process is fabricated. So here it is going to be a screw type of abutment which we are going to give, and you could see the preoperative view, and this is the 6 months loaded postoperative view which is present. So to tell more about abutments, abutment, it is a portion of implant that supports and retains processes or implant superstructure. So you can see different types of abutments which are present here. So above this your processes will be inserted. So this abutment could be of various types. It could be an abutment for screw retention, it could be an abutment for cement retention, abutment for attachment. Depending on the angulation, it could be a straight or an angled abutment. Depending upon the design, it could be a flat topped abutment, tapered shoulder abutment, or direct gold coping. Cement retain abutments are being used. Next, coming on to the screw retain abutments, the main advantage, there is a low profile of retention, less momentum of force, no risk of cement in the sulcus, it is easily retrievable. Now coming on to the disadvantages, there's loosening of screws could be possible, difficulty to obtain passivity, difficult to obtain aesthetics, greater chances of porcelain fracture, access to the posterior regions is difficult because of the risk of aspiration. Next, coming on for abutment of attachment. So you could see that in this case, this is an entire abutment. So this is an attachment device to retain a full removable processes. This includes the mesostructure bars, which could be continuous or non-continuous, or superstructures such as the magnets or the custom clips or the harder clips which thing. Next category is your straight abutment or angled abutment. So indicated for replacing single tooth for large processes up to full arch implant bone structures, used for emergence only when emergence profile is parallel, but if it is not parallel, then it can be prepared by a direct or an indirect method. Next, coming on to angled abutment. So this is available in angulation of 10 to 30 degree. It improves the aesthetics. Supposing if you are going a little different from your different in your implant placement, this can help in correcting the path of insertion. Increase in angle, the main disadvantage is that there's more risk of fracture here, and it should be placed as deep as possible with favorable axis of rotation. So to conclude on this whole thing, I would tell that bone remodels in relationship to the forces which acts upon it. Clinically, the surgeon should correlate the hardness of the bone and the presence of the cortical plate to 4 different qualities of bone. This provides the standardization of the density of bone. With the application of the prosthetic kit, the stress should be introduced to the surrounding bone in a scientific and a mathematically perfect fashion. This will then produce the most favorable and clinical situation for a long-term implant success and eliminate bone loss. So ultimately, I would tell you that bone, the density of the bone is the main factor for checking how you are going to give your implant. The site has to be checked prior to your implant placement. Thank you, and if you have any doubts, please do ask us on Google Classroom, or you can again ask through WhatsApp through. Thank you.